Happy Homebrew Wednesday, folks. Ryan here, drinking a little Cooper's Draft. It's got a little bitter. Not a really a huge fan of this. Probably won't do this one again, but it's all right. It's beer, right? How about that airlock? Am I right? That was the recipe I did this weekend, actually. It's based on a recipe by Northern Brewer, which is based on a beer made by New Glarus called Spotted Cow. Northern Brewer calls it the Speckled Heifer. And I've made that one before. It is a partial mash. But I had to make some adjustments to it. Let's see if we can get a picture of this. So, this is the Speckled Heifer partial mash kit. It's kind of what the beer looks like. I'll pull up the recipe here. There we go. So, in the one that I did this time, since I wanted to brew on Sunday, so obviously didn't have time to order this from Northern Brewer. So I decided, okay, I'll go to the local brew shop and make it. And we have 2 pounds of 2-row, the Carapils. The brew shop did not have flaked barley, so we substituted with flaked oats. We still had the flake maize. Instead of the pills and malt syrup, what I used is pretty much the same stuff. It was except I used 3.3 pounds because that's the container it came in of. CBW Pilsen Light. Same stuff, I think. Pretty much same stuff. And I went looking for the light dry malt extract, which was not actually going to be the right stuff. They didn't have any. So I was like, oh man, okay, I'll substitute with extra light, which actually just ended up being the right stuff to use. Had the same level bond, so it'll be just as light. And really the difference between light and extra light is 1 degree of level bond, so it really is probably not even noticeable anyway. But it's the right stuff, so it'll have the right color. Since I did have a little more fermentables from the extra malt syrup, I did modify the time that the first hop addition went in. I actually went through Beersmith with this recipe and made the adjustment so the IBUs would be around the same. It's probably the change is not even noticeable, but I put the first addition in at 47 minutes instead of 45. So I mean, it's really not a big deal, but it was just, let's get as close as possible. The 2 yeasts that were recommended are the US-05 or Y yeast 1056. The brew shop did not have either. So I decided to look up, okay, what is the White Labs liquid yeast equivalent of 1056? And that's their California Ale. I believe it's like WLP 001. It's a California Ale yeast. So it's probably alright to use. I was really surprised it didn't have any dry US-05. That's usually kind of one that you always have in stock, but must have just had a rush on yeast this week. So I got brewed it on Sunday, did the partial mash, dialed it. I got the fermentables out of the mash. And I think I know exactly what I was doing wrong. So in the instructions, it says get the water up to 164. Yes, that's high, but get it up that hot. You can cool it down, but got up 164, poured my grains in, and then added cold water, and that brought it down. I added too much cold water though, and so I was down to 140s. Okay, so I started heating up water in the microwave, boiling water, trying to get it up, and I finally got it back up to about 152. Sealed it up, and then let it sit for an hour. So I was right at 152. I was sure something was going to be screwed up in this. After an hour, the temperature, I had taken the whole kettle and I'd wrapped it in my space blanket. I don't know if any of you have seen the space blanket. I may have had that in another video at one point. I don't know. But it was like 150 when it was done, maybe 151. So I'm like, all right, okay, well, we kept it warm. I think before what I was doing every time I'd screwed up was I was throwing it at 155, thinking, okay, it's going to drop a few degrees. But I was retaining that heat, and that's too hot to get anything out of those grains. So I was just killing the mash. So, 152. And you could kind of tell a difference in the wort when I pulled the grains out. Anyway, I raised, once the mash was done, I kind of grabbed the bag, held on to it, and pulled up just a little bit. So things are still in the water. The grains are still in the water, but they're not touching the bottom, so I want to scorch them. And then turned on the heat on the stove, brought it up to 170. Then I took the bag out, put it in a strainer, strained it with 170 degree water, sparged it, I mean. So this was clean water. By the end of this, well, hold on, I'm going to keep going on this. Once everything was sparged, I threw away the grains, and then I brought it up to a boil. At that point, took it off, added the liquid malt extract, and then of course I always rinse out my liquid malt extract can, so now I've added more water. I was boiling, I think, either right at or right above the 4 gallon mark on this kettle. I had probably about that much left on the top of the kettle. It took me a while to bring that back to a boil because there's so much water, and it's not even the fact there's so much water, but because of how high it was, I had to make sure that the heat was not super high like I normally would do to try to get the boil up faster. I had to just let it sit so it wouldn't want to boil over instantly. That was rough. And wait, and finally starts boiling a little bit, and so then you can let it start going. I had my hops, and I guess I had the dry malt extract when I added the light malt, liquid malt extract in there already too. So, there's still a lot of stuff in the wort at this point that put up at the high level. Got things to the end. Didn't quite top it off to 5 gallons, maybe 4.75 to 5 gallons. But the refractometer measured the gravity at about 1043, 1044. So we were good. I mean, I was right where I should have been. I probably could have gotten up to 5 and maybe been 1041, 1042. The recipe said, the original recipe says it should be at 1042, but I've never gotten a recipe as high. So even with extract, it's always been a point or two off by the end. And I don't know if that's because the buckets aren't measured right or what. Anyway, so that got done. Got home Monday, and the airlock was going crazy. It was just, I mean, you saw the video. And then I noticed the stout, which I had racked on top of the cacao nibs. It's fermenting again. It started going again a little bit. You see little bubbles coming up in the wort or the beer, and then the airlock would bobble up and down every once now and again. So I'm not sure when that's going to be finished. I may have pulled that in secondary a little soon. I'm not sure. I think the speckled heifer I'm going to have to bottle. I don't think it needs to be, it only needs 1 to 2 weeks and then hop into a bottle. And that's good. Hopefully that'll be good with the oats instead of the barley. What else? Pigged the Brewer's Best IPA and screwed up. First, I busted a pig. One of the screws got busted and had another screw get stuck. Couldn't get out, so I had to throw away the whole valve thing. But I forgot to put there's a restrictor that goes inside the valve, and it looks kind of like a big plastic corkscrew, not corkscrew, a screw that goes in. And what that does, it lets the beer trickle through this little kind of the ridges in the screw, I guess, before it gets to the valve. So there's some resistance, and it doesn't just want to spray out like a rocket, I forgot to put that in there and then pressurize the pig. And once those pouches are pressurized, you can't open them unless you want beer everywhere. I mean, if you open it, you will empty the pig. So I panicked. I emailed the company and said, I did this. I can't believe I did this. Well, is it a loss? And their suggestion is to get some vinyl tubing, 10 feet of it. And when I want to start drinking, I plug it into the end of the snout, or that valve, and that should offer enough resistance to keep it from making a huge mess. So I will be trying that. I am hoping it works. I'll probably put the IPA in the fridge in about 1.5 weeks. So I won't be ready in time for IPA day, unfortunately, which is Thursday, I believe. Yes, Thursday, August 7th, I believe that is IPA day. So I don't know. I still want to do another brew this month. I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm thinking about the partial mash, the dry dock from Northern Brewer of their vanilla porter. I haven't done something like that. I guess that's kind of my experiment right now with cacao nibs. Racking on something, or not dry hopping, but having something else to add for flavor. See if I can bring that up. So this is a clone of an actual brewing company called Dry Dock. See if we can bring that up. So it's a rich, smooth porter with hints of rum and molasses behind a coffee-like roasted character, then infused with fragrant vanilla. The vanilla beans used in this kit are of Madagascar origin and provide a cheap, sweet flavor. The final pint emanates a heavy vanilla perfume and makes for both a wonderful after-dinner drink or an ultimate ice cream float. So that looks good. I thought about doing this one this weekend and getting the brew shop to throw it together. Still would have had to replace the yeast because their only option, the only suggestion is 1056, unfortunately. But I would have just used the same White Labs that I did use. Or, with a porter, maybe some US04. Let's see, let's pull the beer recipe up here. So, I don't think much of this is actually fermentable. I think mostly it's just the 1 pound of English Maris Otter. This is supposed to come out 1061 though, so you must be able to get some out of some other stuff in here. I don't know. I would like to give this one a shot though. I wasn't sure how much it was going to cost me. And that's a lot of grain in there. We got 1 pound, almost. We got 2.5, 3, almost 4 pounds of grain. Oh, this is why, because this recipe called for the light dry extract, which the brew shop didn't have. I could have probably used the Golden Light syrup for the LME here, and that would have been 3.3 pounds, so yeah. And the vanilla beans that they did have at the brew shop, they did have some vanilla beans, would be like $11. Not really sure how much all these grains would have cost me. So this would have been $10. That would have been 20 right there. That was being really cheap. So, maybe $9 for that. So we have 10, 20, we'll say 30, 40, 42. Maybe it would have come out the same. I can't imagine that though. I mean, these grains, it would have had to be over $50. But I mean, it probably still would have been about the same as paying for shipping from Northern Brewer. But I do want to do this one at some point, and I may just order it and call it good. But I want to put off the brewing of this one until at least 2 weeks from now, so, or a week and a half at least. So put some distance between all these brews. I got to make sure I get that stout into something and get the cream ale bottled. Maybe wait until the Mexican cerveza gets used up so I can keg the stout. This is good. I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on this beer. The one I'm drinking right now. But anywho, hope you have a happy Homebrew Wednesday. I'll catch you next week. Cheers. 17.